That's awesome. I started just kind of by myself, actually. I started by making a website for Star Wars Destiny. And I was, at the time, really into other trading card games and also very into Star Wars. And I was like, wow, this game looks awesome. I want to do this. I want to be part of the community. I admired people from other communities that like made stuff and did cool creative things around the game. So I was like, all right, I want to try to do this for this game. And that website didn't really go anywhere, but I did get to meet a lot of people through that. And in the Star Wars Destiny days, I was sort of known as the person that was like on everybody else's podcast. I didn't have my own until I joined up with my buddy David, who now is on the channel that I'm on, Unplayable. And we did a lot of stuff there. I kind of started that way, but kept doing it because of all the friends that I made. And just like being part of the community of content creators around all these games, it's been awesome. Like, only reason why I know Jack is from doing this stuff, and a lot of my best friends are just from doing this. So
yeah, I actually forgot about the website that you ran for Destiny. I just must remember Jedi Trials.
Yep.
Going off that. Awesome. And so now that you are content creators, has there ever been a moment where you feel like making content, being a part of an online community, has helped you build something locally? And even if you maybe don't have a certain hit on that, maybe you could talk about maybe a different team member kind of used Jodocast or used Unplayable to help create something for some local players.
I think so, yeah. It's a little different for me right now because I moved across the country about a year ago, and so everything is sort of starting over. But back when I lived in Tucson, a lot of, I roped in some of the friends I made there into like making the videos, and then, sort of had a little Jodocast gang in town, and that felt good when you went to the local events and when everyone has the Jodocast play match or whatever, and then people, it sort of spreads a little bit in your local scene, and I know that's been the case where sort of we've got people in our community online across the world, but it's definitely got sort of an epicenter in the Fargo, North Dakota area. So I don't want to call anybody out, but if you go give us a woo if you're the Jodocast from there you go. Yeah. So I think it does help because obviously the friends you know in real life tend to like support you in the things you're doing. So if I'm making a YouTube channel, my friends are like, well, cool, I'll help out, or at least I'll put your sticker on my lunchbox or whatever. That really, does sort of disseminate into your local communities. I think it's also sometimes worth noting that they don't have to be the same thing. Like, I don't try and force the Jodocast into, in-person communities. I'm like, okay, let's try and get this Shatterpoint scene going in Sioux Falls. Like, they know that's what I do, but I'm not like, hey guys, this is Shatterpoint League sponsored by the Jodocast. Like, no, let's just make sure there's people in touch. Maybe you only care about Shatterpoint, you don't care about Jodocast. So it's, I don't make that like the point of building communities. I want to put like an in-person local community together around a specific game that everybody likes. If they happen to go, oh, I like your content, I like your videos, and that's fun. That's a nice bonus. But
yeah, the comments about like not forcing it, I appreciate a lot because I kind of I don't know. I treat each thing separately. Like, I sort of lead an online community, or at least help lead an online community, and I use the physical, in-person communities as like a way to have fun with in-person friends. And there's not a lot of crossover there. Like, everybody obviously knows that like I'm on a YouTube channel or whatever, but like I'm just a guy that puts videos on the internet. So.
Yeah, and for anybody that I guess doesn't necessarily know me either, I had a podcast, Gold Dice Podcast, that has been passed off. We'll see how that goes with Flock and Brian. But one of the things that always helped me do it was making connections across the internet and being able to use that in local events. And so I know even a lot of you, if you're part of online communities of Unplayable, of JodoCast, of any other, content creators within the sphere, many of them are willing to like help out for some things. And so one of the things we did with the release of Twilight was we had a draft and we went to a brewery, we asked for some donations, we got hooked up, like even Game Genic sent us some stuff, and other people did 3D printed tokens and things like that. So it was a really awesome event that I was able to use a podcast community of people and connections that I know to be able to kind of launch a local event that, only I think 30 or so people came to. So it was like a smaller scale thing, but I got to use it in that sense. And so I guess the next prompt is that. So there's people in this room, they obviously are very interested in Star Wars Unlimited, coming to Galactics, and even coming to this panel as well. If somebody's in here who I love this game, I play webcam games online, and I'm looking to take a step to help build my local community, what's something you feel like is a good first step to maybe running the first Star Wars Unlimited event at a local game store?
I think talking to the owner or whoever works at your local game store and be like, hey, is this, what their stock is, and if they don't have it, be like, can you start getting this in? Because that's obviously a pretty necessary, you can bring your own cards there, but if they got it on the shelves, that helps people that you're trying to draw in do that. But I would, just start by saying, hey, if you're the only one that you know of, find your local store, be like, can we put it on the calendar that I'm going to be here at this time teaching people how to play this game? Because I love teaching people to play my favorite games. I was crazy enough to run demos at Gen Con one year for Star Wars Legion. I did a bunch of demos for Unlimited leading up to the release. I drove across the state to run demos at different stores. And it's fun teaching people games you like. So, if you're in a community and there aren't if there isn't an existing one, a good way to start is trying to find a store and say, hey, let's set up a time that's like a learn to play event. If you can provide, like great case would be, hey, maybe you give 5% off unlimited products to people who sit through this demo or whatever. Maybe be a win-win for you. I help build this community. You sell these products, but setting a time to just try and teach people, I think, is maybe a great first step if there's nothing else on the ground there.
I definitely agree with making friends with your local game store owners. There's 2 shops in my very small town, and friends with both the people who own those stores. That makes it a lot easier to help. Either coordinate events, make sure that they're scheduled at times that people can actually go. Make sure that they know what people actually want it to be. Early on in the game, it was they would host pre-releases and they'd be best of 3s, and nobody liked that. And so, if you're friends with your local game store owner, it's a lot easier to say hey, this is actually how it should be run. Let's try it this way, and then helping them bring in more people. Early on when the game first launched, I started a local Discord for our area, which that's another big thing that's important is having a community or just a communications platform where your community can meet and actually talk to each other, coordinate games, do all that stuff. And I printed out business cards that had a QR code to Discord on it. And so people, they go into their local game store, they see this brand new game that's either coming out or it's just on their shelf, they think it's interesting, and then the game store owner can hand them that card and say, hey, here's the local community for this game. Join here. This is how you find out about events and stuff like that. So.
The Discord is a huge thing for local stuff. I did that when I was in Tucson. I made a Discord that was just all Star Wars games. It wasn't the JodoCast Discord, but it was, hey, here's Tucson Star Wars games. So because there's a lot of overlap. A lot of the guys who played Legion played Unlimited, and that was part of the way the Unlimited community blew up there. Because a lot of me and a couple of the other guys were like, hey, this game's coming out. We're hyped about it. Who else get it? And a lot of guys were like, I guess I'll give it a try. I'm like, yeah, there's going to be a pre-release. We set this up with the store, be there, and we've got a Discord so everybody can, shout at each other when there's events that need buys.
Yeah, I definitely want to echo that too. Same thing. I have a Philadelphia, South Jersey Discord that I help set up and get going, and we've been able to coordinate events, figure out what local stores have pre-releases, have store showdowns. eventually up to planetary qualifiers, things like that. And yes, it definitely does help. And you also need to figure out just kind of what your community prefers. Like, I made a Facebook and a Discord. I don't know if the Facebook has been posted in like 3 months, but it's there if anybody wants it.
That's definitely something I've seen come up where there's like some people who are only on Facebook and some people are only on Discord. So, I mean, I prefer Discord, but it's something you need to kind of assess with the local scene. But I think it's definitely helpful to have a Discord that's like game store agnostic. If you live in an area with multiple game stores that do want to run unlimited events, because it can feel awkward for people saying, hey, let's go meet up at store B on store A's Discord server. So having just like a regional server that's, store agnostic is actually very useful for getting people to have conversations with each other about meeting up places.
Can I flip the script and ask you guys a question? How do you guys set your Discords up in terms of like channels? Do you have them by region or do you have them by store?
The local ones was listed by game type because that one was for multiple games, and then with under each, there was subsets like here's list building, here's strategic discussion, here's events, here's meetups. That was how we did that one. I don't think there was specific store channels in there because everyone had mixed feelings about every single store in Tucson.
Yeah, we did, when I made it, like a general welcome section, new player tips, had different sections where, I would propose all the showdowns, the pre-releases, so it was like I'm interested in a pre-release coming up, I click this, and there's a list of 10 different stores, and even some stores have multiple events. And I actually put it to a poll, I was like, do we want to do like a Philadelphia section for game stores and the South Jersey, like this different area, but people had voted and they preferred to do specific stores. So I would add in stores and create that as to see how much activity was, right? So there was also, I ended up deleting a few because there hadn't been a post in there about 7 months. The store wasn't supporting it. So sometimes when you do that, you have to be on top of it a little bit more about figuring out where people are congregating and stuff like that. But it did make it interesting because we also had store owners buy into the server a little bit and join, and because they felt like they had a section and a stake in the community. They would come in and post, hey, we're having a 1K, hey, this is our pre-release, hey, this is our showdown, and this is our product, things like that to make them want to post and engage with the community there too. So, you want to swap?
Absolutely.
So talk about trying to get people in the door too as well. What do you feel like has been one of the more effective things in keeping players coming back? It can be Star Wars Unlimited specific. You can reference another game that you maybe haven't been able to do just yet with Unlimited, but whatever you feel like is a good strategy to getting people to come back each week.
It's a hard question to answer.
It is.
I mean, 90% of it's the game. Like, if the game is fun, people like the game, or maybe not 90, maybe it's 50-50. And like, the other 50 is actually having friends that you're playing with. And I'm talking myself into even less than that because I've played games that I don't really like that much just because I like the people that are playing it. So maybe it just is all about the community that you can cultivate and how cool the people are, how cool the community is, how welcoming it is.
Yeah, I think maybe you want to call it a hack if we're going to try to be a life hack or whatever, is being obviously being friendly is important, but being generous is also really helpful, especially with new players. I know it's really easy and unlimited for a new player. You can give them all your bulk comments and extras, which mean nothing to you, but mean everything to them. As well as, like I mentioned before, I've been working on getting a Shatterpoint community off the ground in my new local area, and they did a card rebalance and everything, and I happen to work in a place that has, really nice printers and stuff, and they won't charge me for that, so I went and got all of the new cards printed on nice cardstock and cut them out and gave them to everybody for free in the community, and just doing things like that, like gestures that help everybody know that you are a community, in sort of that ancient sense that you're all, there to, enjoy optimal for you, but it still feels nice to make, especially in the early days, especially with a newer player. And that's something I saw for myself, because Unlimited was basically my very first TCG, and a lot of the people in the Jodo cast and just in the Unlimited scene in general have been playing TCGs for decades, and so people are saying, terms that I'm like, hold on, let's stop. What does that mean? Like, what is, like I have to be like, what does ramp mean? Like, that's just, are we skateboarding? Oh no, it's, and so being understanding with like really new people or with simple things, and just being really welcoming and trying to like be generous with, supplies. Or maybe you've got, oh, I'm gonna go get these custom tokens. I'm gonna go buy these, metal coins on Etsy, and I'm gonna take, a $30 loss or whatever, but everyone's gonna have a cool thing. I think something that it might be later down the line, is coming up with a cutesy little name for your local group. I did back in Tucson, they called themselves the Tucson Raiders, and they had a little like Tuscan doing stuff, and everybody like in the X-Wing team, they got shirts and stuff, and like that's fun. And you see people like that here. A lot of people have matching shirts, and that's a really fun way to like have a sense of community with people, especially when you travel to places.
They still play every Thursday night.
Yeah? Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I moved out of Tucson about a year ago. It's great.
Two of 48 nationals and two of actually places on there.
Sweet. This is
Jay and Sean.
Jay and Sean. I remember playing with them back when I moved there. Not tonight. Anyway, side topic.
No, I think that's great. And I like that you hit on, giving people something or making an ease of access to people. One of the things that I found, and especially my first TCG was Star Wars Destiny. Still, relatively not long ago. But one of the things that helped me showing up to an event was somebody having a specific deck made for me, and that was fine. Like thinking for this, you don't need to include legendaries into that, right? You don't need to put your hyperfoils into that. But even if you just have a common, uncommon deck, and there are some budget decks that are very competitive as well. But it was nice to show up and somebody be like, "Oh, you want to play a game? Here, I have a deck for you." Like have something. Even if you're not necessarily giving it to them, it could be something that you have on hand. And for Star Wars Unlimited, what I started doing is I bought the double game jacket pod, and I put the Darth Vader starter on one side and Luke in the other. And so when I would go to stores, if people were interested, I'd be like, boom, here you go. And then obviously, this isn't something we can do just yet. Come October you can, but the intro battle halt is like the perfect thing for somebody, especially getting into TCGs, is going to be a perfect opportunity to do that. Only $20, October 3rd, shameless FFG employee plug for product coming. But it would be a great product for that. And so things like that are always interesting, because I remember being overwhelmed. Somebody just like handed me a box and there were like 300 cards in there, and they're like, "Hey, go build a deck." I'm like, "I don't know, it's the same thing. Ramp? What are you talking about?"
Right, yeah, and back when we started, one of our guys put together like here's how to build your first pre-release deck, and I'm like, oh, this is immensely useful for me. So I wasn't even considering like, oh, you gotta balance the ratio of cost of unit and your curve, which was another thing to learn. But yeah, pre-built decks are really helpful for people, because deck building is a big hurdle in getting into. It's obviously really fun once you get into it, but if you haven't done it before, it's a little tough.
Back in set one, the main shop that I now go to didn't stock Star Wars Unlimited, because they had just opened their store like maybe a month or two before it launched. And so I got a box from FFG with like a couple starter decks and packs and stuff like that. You probably got one of those too. And I gave my starter decks, I sleeved them up, and I gave them to that shop so that they could teach people how to play the game. Even if a community member wasn't there who already knew how to play, like it could get people into the games who weren't already. So having your local store like actually have like a product that people can try out is a good idea.
Yeah, love that. And then, so even talking about somebody coming out, somebody having interest, what do you feel like is some of the better specific type of events? If you're trying to get new players to try out it, Say they did the 2-player starter, now they're looking to do an actual event. Is it draft? Is it sealed? Is it jump right into a best of 3 sideboard type event? But how does that look like for you?
My pick is a sealed format / the pre-release. My wife always comes to me to all the pre-releases, and she doesn't come to the constructed stuff. Yeah. For the same reason I prefer sealed is you're never going to be running up against the most meta decks, which can turn off new players if you just stomp somebody. And it's really hard to make a just absolutely perfect deck in sealed, which is part of the fun of it. And so as long as they have a foundational knowledge of here's these cards, this is how you should probably think about putting your deck together. I think that's my preferred way that would be fun for new players. Because they also get that satisfaction of ripping packs, which we all know is pretty addictive. So yeah, just hook them on that.
Pre-releases are definitely my favorite part, but I do think it can be a little bit hard for new players to wrap their head around building a sealed deck, especially if they're not as deep into the game as someone like me or probably most of you, where they don't know all the cards in the set already before the set already comes out. Because it's just you open 6 packs, you gotta read however many cards that is, 8 cards, and trying to figure out how to build a deck around that, which can be tough for people. So I don't know what my real answer, honestly. I love pre-release and sealed, but I don't know, maybe there's a step between.
For what it's worth, it is sort of a feature of it to not know what the cards are ahead of time for my wife. Because she's like, oh, look at this one. I'm I've seen it, but yes, that's cool. That's true.
Yeah, some things that I've seen successful at that too. I do agree that I think sealed / pre-release, you get 6 packs, is a great entry, because even draft, while I know it's referred to as a great entry point, that creates a lot more decision points, a lot more stress for somebody potentially jumping in, because now it's not only do I have to read these cards and learn them for the first time, I now need to decide of this pack, what is the best one for me to take, things like that. So what I've actually liked is, I try to keep it shorter, because eventually people want to play with all their cards, but I have done in the past a sealed progression league, essentially, where you maybe get a new pack or 2 each week, and I think those can be fun, because it's here's my 6 packs, I made a deck, this is cool, and now each week I get a new pack, and I can try to figure out, do I want to swap colors, do I want to swap leaders, do I just want to add 1 or 2 cards to my deck, and that's something that I found really enjoyable to play as well. But you don't want to do it for 8 weeks, because eventually people are I bought 6 boxes, I want to play with the cards that are in it, and things like that. So it's something that is definitely, you need to feel your local community and kind of hit it at the right time to do that.
Well, I've always wanted to do one of those, but I just haven't yet. It sounds so fun.
Yeah. And then so going into it, trying to think of outreach. Outreach can always be a potential issue. For me and my friends, it was a Star Wars card game is coming out. Great, we're interested. Let's go buy it. When's it come out? But that's not the case for everybody. So the question becomes is how do we get people who maybe aren't in a TCG space to come out and try something that is maybe a little bit more daunting? And have you had any success with doing that, of getting somebody that maybe likes Star Wars but doesn't like or doesn't know about TCGs into this?
I think that was a large number of the people I was demoing the game to back before the game came out, was people go, there's a big cutout of Darth Vader, there's a Star Wars coming out, I'm in. Or at least I'm curious enough to give it a try. And I think honestly the IP does go a long way for, if someone likes Star Wars and are looking for a game, they go, hey, this one is, easy to learn, hard to master, and for a lot of games, I like saying, well, who's your favorite character? And at this point in Unlimited, someone's favorite character is probably already in the game, probably more than once. So go, well, who's your favorite character? And I go, well, you could make this really cool deck built around that character. Because new players, maybe if they're coming from a different TCG, they might be pretty interested in, competitive and synergies and combos and stuff. But a more casual player who's just looking to get into something new, or especially if they just like Star Wars, framing their the possibilities they can do around their fandom and their interests is another approach to take. You like Han Solo? I'm like, well, there's lots of different things you can do with Han Solo. Lots of Han Solos. there's, like, for me, I'm a Star Wars lore nerd at heart, and when I just see, oh, here's Avar Chris, or here's Lutovsky, like, they're in this game, and that's, you know, enough of a pull for some people. Like, oh, that thing is in this game, and that just seeing it on a little card for some reason is super exciting. But I guess trying to figure out what angle that they're looking to, like, you know, fulfill. If they're coming at a Star Wars fandom, we'll talk about, like, here's, you know, the sports. Or if there's, you know, coming from other card games, then you can explain why this one is better than those because of all the mechanics that make this game better than those.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, obviously it's easier if somebody's already into Star Wars or already into TCGs. You can kind of like, you know, sway them in one way or another. Say, oh, you know, you like Star Wars, hey, you played this game, it's really fun. Or you like TCGs, this game is actually really good. You don't have to like Star Wars, but like you also don't have to play in your local game store. And there's people that'll just come up to you and ask you what you're doing. Like anytime I travel and like travel with friends when we're playing in the airport or something like that, we get people that come up to us and ask about the game while we're playing. So just like going to a coffee shop, even like, you know, bringing your local community out somewhere else and playing a game, you'll get people that come up and ask you what's going on, and maybe they become future community members.
Yeah, and speaking of playing not in your local game store, which, like you mentioned webcam links earlier, that was something we started a couple cents ago on the Jodocast, and it has been just really incredible how, you know, it's just free webcam link, you know, you gotta use all your official cards, get your camera, and then it's just this fun little community where people jam games and are always like discussing, and we've implemented like a system that rewards you for playing, but voted on like underdog leaders. So like, okay, if you're gonna play with Nalase or Admiral Holder or whatever, that's worth an extra point in the league or whatever, which is fun because a lot of people like kind of dug into their meta decks, and when there's just a little bit of incentive to like try think outside the box and try something different, that's, you know, fun for them, but it's also fun for the community as a whole because now they have things to talk about when they, you know, finish those games and go, oh, that was cool. I didn't, you know, that combo that, you know, we're the first people to ever see happen. And that's been a lot of fun to have just a free webcam league with, you know, promos to mail out. We mailed some stuff out to New Zealand because there's like a little kid from New Zealand who plays, which is fun.
Yeah, that's also especially if your local scene is very oriented into Star Wars, giving them opportunities to play the leaders that they don't often get to play in a larger meta world makes them happy. People, like, there are fans of some, that's why there's 90 different leaders in this set, so that people are doing like all different ones and want to play all different ones, and giving people opportunities to do that is always going to be a good thing. And so obviously starting a local community, starting an online community is always going to face challenges. And so what do you feel like are maybe some of the biggest hurdles that you had to face while creating those communities, and is there anything that you wish you knew when you started them?
It's a tough question. It's tough.
We're hard hitters here, you know?
I should have looked at these before we started.
Yeah.
I would say, like, if you ever get behind, it's really hard to, like, get that community back. So, like, if you have a community that takes, like, you know, weeks off or months off, something like that, maybe your store closed or something like that, you gotta find a new store to play in, something along those lines, it can be really tough to, like, it feels like you're starting from scratch a little bit. So, yeah, like, trying not to let that community lapse. Like, even if you have to go somewhere else and play, I think that makes things a little bit easier.
Yeah, I think one of the hardest things, and also obviously one of the most important things, is, I guess the same for anybody who's tried to play any board game for more than 2 times with the same people, is coming up with a time and place to do it consistently. Because like sometimes you can do leagues that are like asynchronous, especially if you have an app or a program online that's pairing people up. But if you have a time and place, and you say, okay, every Thursday, every other Thursday, we meet here at this time, and that's when we're going to be playing Unlimited. And so people know, okay, this is when I can show up, and there'll probably be somebody there. At the beginning, it's helpful to online post ahead of time, like, okay, check in, react with a thumbs up on this, who's coming tonight. Because if there's only like 4 of you, you don't want to be the only one there. But still, like, just showing up is the important part, and the store will see you showing up, and they'll, want to support your cause more. But just having that that set time that just people know, okay, this is the time that the unlimited people meet. Like, I don't have to try and find online, oh, when are they? Is it a Tuesday this week? Is it just being consistent with that is super important to just, because then it starts to grow, because then it's easier for people to find their way to it.
Yeah, consistency pretty much with everything is always going to be good in helping foster that repetition in local communities. And now, especially as content creators, do you feel like there's kind of a tension or a struggle of trying to help promote your platforms and things while also building a local community?
I think I sort of mentioned before that my local community and the online community are sort of separate entities. I'll bust out my Jodo play map. If somebody asks about it, I'll be like, oh well, I do this and this, or whatever. But maybe more in the future. There's a local college in the town, the small town I live. They have a huge. It's like a real nerdy school. They've got a big, the game club is the biggest club, and they have a free con every year. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna sponsor this so I can get my logo on there. And this year, I'm gonna try and see if I can organize some kind of free, unlimited tournament and get the unlimited players from the big cities nearby to come down. So that'll be sort of a merging of the online community and the JodoCast community. But for the most part, they tend to be sort of separate at the moment. But also, it's harder for me because I am pretty new in my area, so a lot of the, I'm going to start with, hey, we both like unlimited, let's play this, rather than, hey, subscribe to my YouTube channel.
Yeah, I keep them pretty separate. But the hardest part is just time, having time for both. And I don't know, it's a personal problem, I guess, but I wish I had a better answer than that.
No, yeah, similar thing, having done Golden Dice while also trying to build a local community was tough at times, especially depending on other personal things going on. And so, even going on to that, thinking about ways to engage, because not every group that forms is always going to be new players, right? Sometimes, you can talk about maybe a store closes and different competitive players, people who are invested are starting to get into the game. But what are some ways that you can maybe take people that already is separate to engage into the game and help that community feel a little bit connected to some larger events? Maybe you coordinate something of going to a regional or a sector or even Galactic Sphere. How do you take your local game store and make them feel like a bigger part of Star Wars Unlimited?
The idea that you mentioned, creating a team basically around your community, going with a shared logo, t-shirt, whatever, that's a fun way to make it feel like it's bigger and make it feel like you're all sort of in it together, traveling places.
Yeah, because when you're playing at home, you're like, well, I want to beat this guy. And now you travel together, you're like, well, I want to see that guy do as good as he can. He's wearing the same shirt. I think that is one of the best ways you can do that with a more established group is see if you can be okay, everybody, there's a big tournament in this city that's 3 hours away. Who wants to carpool for the weekend or whatever? Or maybe, because sometimes I wouldn't want to drive 3 hours in the morning to a tournament and then drive 3 hours back in the same day. But if you do that with 4 or 5 of your buddies who are playing the same thing, the kind of shared suffering becomes fun in a way. And I know a lot of people, a lot of different game groups will do that, especially when things like the level of regionals or whatever start showing up. Oh, maybe we don't need to get a hotel because it's only 2.5 hours away. And then you're driving home at midnight, but it's
The thing that I think I don't know, most of us would agree about is the things that bind us together with these games isn't usually the game itself. It's all the stuff around the game where you're traveling with people or talking to people or just hanging out with people after you're playing games and talking about things. So the more opportunities you give your community to do that stuff, the stronger it'll become when it comes to the games too. So.
Yeah, I even think, we were at the Minneapolis Regional, and my favorite moment was Sunday and Saturday night, we were all just hanging out with friends at the hotel lobby, just playing Twin Suns, watching the reactions to that. It's a weekend focused around competitive play, but our favorite moments were like the opposite of competitive. So it's those moments of trying to create a group of you and then go to the place and like work as a team. Even rounds in between, we're like, did you win? You do well? Things like that.
Yeah.
And that helps you feel connected to that.
I feel like that's how you and I became friends. Was like Destiny Worlds. In between rounds, we'd sort of check in with each other.
Yeah.
And we were kind of around the same level, and it was like, give us a chance to talk to each other and like get to know each other.
Yeah, because when you go to, even expanding this to online things, I'm sure many of you have met somebody for the first time this weekend who you've talked to for hours and hours and hours online or played hundreds of games against, and it's like that situation where you can show up knowing somebody, yes, I know 10 people from my local community, but also being able to meet and check in on people that you've talked to hours online is a great way to stay engaged in that area too.
That is a fun aspect of just like that concept of these communities in general, because everybody here at this event and a lot of people around the world are in the Star Wars Unlimited community, and then that's made up of smaller communities, and often those are made up of even smaller communities. So, like, oh, here's the I don't remember what time we're talking about, Philadelphia or something.
Philadelphia. Yeah.
There's the Philadelphia community, but that's made up of all these little ones where some people don't cross-pollinate between stores. And I think every time you take your smaller one and like engage them in like the level up is a fun way for them to feel this kind of connection with this. I think everybody who's here feels like an extra like intense like appreciation for just being involved with this game, just because being in this space is so cool. So taking your local community up a level, just conceptually is a nice way to bond everybody, but also like see the larger community and how you fit into it.
Yeah. And so one of the things, stepping past this, somebody is new and coming to your store. Do you find any type of content that you can point them to has always been effective? And you can't say JodoCast, you can't say Unplayable. But just this idea of they come to the store, they're enjoying the game, and they're like, hey, any strategy recommendations, any videos I can watch to help take me to, whether that's the next level or they simply just want to watch more games with Star Wars played.
I'm going to watch Star Wars A New Hope by George Lucas. I mean,
it doesn't have to be a specific channel either, but just like an idea of what content you should be on the lookout for.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it depends on the person. Like if they're into a specific type of deck, and I know that another YouTuber or something like that is like well versed in that type of thing. Like if player was playing Kira last set Databall or whatever, go watch Wu's videos. Who's like the godmother of that deck. So I don't know. I think it depends a lot.
Yeah, it depends on what they're like. Well, like if you look at main deck's video, there's always like, oh, here's this like crazy, ridiculous combo that technically could work, but probably won't. Like a lot of people are like, well, that's just like a fun brain puzzle, and that's a fun way to engage with the game. But some people are just like, no, I need to find the best competitive deck or stats recast, or Mobius was just telling me about the most cool idea of videos that he's been doing with sort of a trivia game of recognizing alterations in cards, which is really fun, sort of like game show type thing. So there's, like, I guess a lot of it really does come down to, well, who's this person and what are they looking to get out of their connection to the game? But so, me personally, I'm less tuned into the like hyper competitive side, so I have less stuff in my back pocket to recommend on that side.
No, I think that's good because each individual person is going to be expecting something different. That's the hard part of these conversations about building a community is that we can't get up here and give you like a 5-point plan and be like, in 6 months you'll see crazy growth type thing, right? It's all very tailored to your communities and the area that you're in and the stores that you have for that. But I want to ask about this idea of maybe people in this room, Set 5, Legends of the Force, just came out. and thinking about what is your plan, what are ways that you can keep people engaged for the next 4 months or so until we get to set 6, right? What are some ways to keep people engaged? Maybe there's no events for a few weeks in the area, or maybe they're just not interested in going to a planetary qualifier. What are some things to keep people coming out and engaged?
I do think that you have some kind of local league where you do like a escalation type of thing, or some other thing where you're accumulating points, or whatever it is to keep people on the hook coming back week after week at your local store. Because you're going to do that.
Yeah, I think if your store is willing, like, getting them on board with like providing some prizes that are that's a big thing to like try and work out with your store, especially if your store is not aware of how the game works or how your community feels. Like getting them to be able to provide pricing that feels fair. But some people, you'll come and you'll pay X dollars and you'll get nothing for it, and that sort of thing. But even if it was just a one-time thing, it makes someone never want to come back to that store and therefore not in your community. So it's really hard to do too, because you can't go up, hey, you own this store, stop treating us like this or whatever. That's not an easy thing to do, but it's something that you need to be aware of when you're setting up events and pricing for it. And some stores will be like, well, here, everyone can just get a booster pack or whatever. A lot of stores will know it's in their best interest to even maybe take a tiny, tiny loss in order to fuel the beginning of your community, because obviously that's going to have a big return for them in the long run. I don't remember when the question started.
Just anything to keep people engaged over the course of an entire set.
Like the weekly play packs. Like eventually people might decide, okay, I've gotten everything I need out of those. But those are honestly, from a fantasy flight point of view, I think those are great. Just showing up, getting to crack another pack that has exciting little cards in it every week. Having some sort of participation thing like that, or if you are running a league, have like, okay, we're going to do like this league, and then at the end we're going to cap it off with a big tournament. I think also just mixing up what format you're playing every week. If you got people who show up every week, be like, okay, who wants to do draft this week? Who wants to do stilts? How about we do Twin Sons, or how about we try the trilogy format this time? Because if you're playing the same thing every week, even if you're mixing up your deck, sometimes you're like, maybe I can wait a week or two until the next set comes out. But if you mix up the format, it's a different game now. And I think that helps a lot to just keep things fresh week to week.
And then last question I have for you guys, and then we'll open up to Q&A from the audience if there are any questions that you would like to ask. But what was your personal favorite local event that you ever got to do for any game, any type of event, whatever it might be, and then kind of why?
Great question.
It is. That I was running.
Running, participating in, whatever.
Well, participating in is easy, because you guys are talking about Destiny Worlds. The old FFG Worlds was just, it's such a fun, because that was all about community, because we had the Armada players, the X-Men players, the Imperial Assault players, the LCG players. It was just like, oh, this little like Star Wars tabletop celebration. So like, if you have, if there's like a Legion group and an Unlimited group, you could see if they want to like have a joint event, just like here, do it on May the 4th or whatever. I've seen some stores do that, like, okay, all of our Star Wars games are 5% off, and we're going to have like multiple Star Wars tournaments, because that's, everyone there, like, even though you're playing different games and you like it for different reasons, you all like Star Wars, and it's fun to, I think, card gamers like to look at minis, and mini gamers like to look at cards and go, what's going on over there? That I ran, that's, I'm trying to think. I haven't run that many big ones. They're all very fun, and everyone loved it, and everyone was happy, but run some Shatterpoint tournaments. I think they're just it is really satisfying when your community is small and you go, okay, we're going to have we're going to have a little tournament, and you think 4 people are going to turn out, and it turns out to be 8 people, and all of them have a really great time, and you hear them chatting about go super big. If you get people in the store playing games and they're smiling, like that's, that's a huge win.
I remember our local store, when I was playing Star Wars Destiny, they would always do pre-releases. They would do where you would get an entire box and then you would like build a deck with the entire box that you open. I always thought that was super fun because it's not something that you typically do. Everybody was there kind of wanting to buy a box anyway. Might as well make use of it and play with it and have fun with it. And that's probably not useful for this conversation, but that was my favorite.
Yeah, I think two of my favorites were something similar, just like midnight drafts. There's some of these events, our store would open up at midnight. You could go pick up your product as the release was that day, but then they would also like fire off a draft or fire off, open your box, open 6-packs. It's like we're all delirious, we're all exhausted, we're all excited to see the cards in our hands, and it just made for some good memories. And the other one for running for me was that Twilight of the Republic draft that I mentioned at a brewery, because it was just like, I was able to get participation tokens for everybody. One of the stores donated all 3 at the time weekly play kits, and so each person walked away with 3 packs of weekly play. We did raffles, and so it was like everybody was walking out of that with a lot of things, and so it was just very exciting for me to be a part of that, of like seeing people walk out with that excitement, and then also just having a good time, hanging out with people. Like people were laughing, talking, joking about things, and then we each, the winner of the pod got a mug that had the logo on it and gold dice on it, and people would send me photos of all the different things they're like drinking out of it. It was very funny, and so it's like having that moment where it still kind of comes back and gets referenced in the local community is always a lot of fun. But that does it for all the questions that I have on my end. This time, if there's anybody in the crowd that would like to ask a question, feel free to shoot your hand up. We got one right here.
I've got a couple.
Yeah.
Can I shoot the first one? We just had Trilogy released for a format. What is FFG doing to support more budget-friendly formats? Like, say, something similar to Magic and Pauper, which just comes on Commons, or in other games you may have game formats that require 2 packs to get in the door to start playing. Are you developing anything to sort of help really break that budget barrier to entry?
Yeah.
Just get people in and get them playing out the door really easy.
So I'll preface this and say that I started July 7th, so I'm still learning everything that is going on and whatnot. But I do know that there are a lot of conversations about what is the easiest way we can just get people in the door. How do we get cards into people's hands and make the least amount of steps they have to take to do that? I think the intro battle is going to be one of the great things for that, but also just talking about ways that they can support specific formats to make it easier to get into them has been a conversation that I've heard.
Sort of a follow-up question back to the product, the balanced cost.
Yep.
I think that's a really cool product for stores in particular. I don't own a store, but I work with game store owners. I'm friends with them, I run events there. I've had many complaints from game stores owners about getting the channels open to FFG and Asmodee to sort of get support for Star Wars in their store as well, because they have to go through the reps. Sometimes the reps it like takes 2 weeks to get back from them, and then when the problem is it's a while. Is there any attempts to make those channels a little more open as well, so we can get direct support from stores to a little more direct support from stores to Star Wars movies specifically?
I can actually answer.
Yeah, I was
that.
saying,
Just got thrown under the bus.
No. So, hi everybody. I'm Jake. I actually
Hello.
sit on the Asmodee side. So
Okay.
I'm the marketing director over there, and I'm also handing out cards today. Let's chat afterwards. I want to find out what the stores you're referencing are, and we'll have a conversation, and
Okay.
we can figure out who the reps are on my side that can help take care of you for that,
Sounds
because
good.
we want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to play this game that we all love, has the chance to actually play it. So let's chat over here, and
Okay.
we can have a discussion about it.
Third one for Joe as well.
I don't think where that conversation is all because
All right.
there's great.
There'll be a post-meeting.
I guess I can have like a panel back here, and, like,
We're going to transition to a different panel.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Well, it's like with the way they break out things with pre-release kits.
Sure.
Pre-release kits are allocated based on the amount of sales that a store does. but it should be looked at more so about the amount of events that the store does. Because I have competitive stores in my area that do not run any events, and they still get pre-release kits, and I got cut off at 40 this time.
Okay.
And I went way beyond 40
Let's
in the
chat.
number that
Let's
I
chat.
sold.
We need to pull 40 here.
Yeah.
We'll chat.
Swooty B in the back.
So a lot of your, I want to follow up on the Jodo guys talking about like change it up like week to week, but that I feel like that kind of speaks to a community where it's like 6 people in a text chat, like where you can kind of pivot, in a moment's notice. You know, we have 5 official formats right now. We're gonna have 6 in March. One of my FLGS runs a sealed escalation league, which is slightly different format. Another one of my FLGS runs Alliance, the unofficial like 2-on-2 format. So if you're trying to like take your community from you've got 5-6 people, we can reliably get like at least a Twin Sons game going once a week into more of like a stable, self-fulfilling community. How do you kind of pick a schedule or a through line? Because some people want to play Premier, some people only want to play Twin Sons. Some people, if you fire limited every week, you're not going to. Not many people can afford to just do limited that often or sealed that often. But if you don't ever do limited or if you play, why don't we ever do limited? How do you have any insight or thoughts on how you might try to create that cadence?
I think it's that's a great question. I think it's best to like default to Premier. But I think that's obviously like the standard go-to, and that doesn't expect people to like spend money every time they show up. Which I love sealed, but that's the drawback of sealed is now I have to pay things. I think if you have like okay everybody, weekly casual play whatever, or weekly play whatever we want to call it, is like default. If you don't hear otherwise, it's Premier. But every other week or whatever, we'll put feelers out and see in the community. Is anybody feeling up like, oh, I gotta feel like doing some draft. Anybody else? No? Okay, we're doing Premier again. But maybe some people tune in. And so like there's not one person like declaring, okay, we're doing sealed this week. It's we'll default to Premier, but every once in a while, whoever wants to bring it up can say, hey guys, I'd really like to play Twin Sons, or can we try a trilogy? I've been wanting to do that. Nobody's okay. Everybody bring your trilogy decks this week. I think just defaulting to Premier, but keeping the door open for anybody who wants to like pitch like off weeks or whatever is a good way to do it. Or defaulting to, like you said, you've got those other formats that okay, we're gonna stick with this one, and then but just having like the one that everybody agrees, okay, this time, this day, we should expect this game out if we haven't heard otherwise. But trying to put the word out if you are changing.
I don't know if that answers it. That's good.
Yeah, I also, to just go off that too, is it's worked well timing it around certain things, and so, right, the set comes out the week after people are really interested in doing draft, right, help build their collection, so maybe you do that for a week or two after. Say, a planetary qualifier or a store showdown is coming up in your area, 2 weeks before that or Premier. I mean, my stores default to Premier, so that, again, I think that is just generally a good standard of that. But yeah, it'll kind of be, maybe after a planetary qualifier, there's no more competitive events, and a new set comes out in a month. Maybe that's one where it's like, hey, who wants to go back and do sealed to get some practice? Who wants to do draft to get some practice before the next set comes out? So for what we've done so far for myself and my stores, just try to hit those notes at the right time around set releases, post events, big events. We know people are going to an event. Let's practice for that type of thing.
Okay, now I know the third one.
Yeah.
This is the first set where Star Wars Limited has been available in big box stores. Are there any ways to sort of piggyback off of that wider availability? People who don't go there FLGS, but they go to Target and see it there. How do we get them into the more game stores?
I'll tell you the stupid thing that immediately popped into my mind was getting like Target influencers all over Instagram, spoofing that and being like, what is this? Oh my gosh, this is a Star Wars game. Or being like, this is what they don't tell you about Star Wars Unlimited. You don't have to buy it at Target. You can go over to this place on Third Street. That's not a good answer, but that's what came in my head.
I don't think it's
Can we get Fantasy Flight to not send the product out to the big stores until the week after the real release, because they don't listen to Street Date. As soon as it rolls into their dock, they put it out.
Yeah.
So
100%. I've seen that happen.
it's horrendous for us, because we're going, I can't sell you this until we hit the official actual pre-release event, and they're going, well, we just bought 2 boxes over at Walmart, and it's like, they do it with all of them. They don't care about Street Date, and there's no.
We have deliberately pushed the Street Date on all of our big box stores to 2 weeks after pre-release. They cannot have product, they cannot sell it until retailers, hobby retailers have, especially those who are running pre-release, have 2 full weeks of on-ramp before they do it.
Yeah, and so same thing. I know that Target, they're like, oh, the release is this weekend. Whatever, our person who stocks it, comes at a different date. But I do know that as well, where there was intentionally a further date set to make sure your local stores had that extra week or two to move their product first and get their pre-orders fulfilled and all those things for that.
So I'm a shop manager, community organizer out in Maryland. Love the game. We have a small but very dedicated community. Since day one, you guys have sent great little extras like the initiative tokens. We just had the great force tokens. They came a little later. The boxes and stuff like that. All a lot of fun. Me as a manager at least, have never seen any suggestions on what they were for. So a lot of times we sat on them like, is this intended for something? And we're waiting for guidance.
Yeah.
Is this something that we're just meant to give out? And then find out later like, oh no, it was meant for X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
Is there any sort of direct line of communication that I'm missing for those items or anything like that, and how we're supposed to ship into our community?
Yeah, I think I remember when they first came out, the intention was that if you pre-ordered, somebody pre-ordered at least 6 packs, and at the time the 2-player starter, they would get the token of that set and the Salt Crate token box. But since then, I know it's been left up to stores to kind of feel like how they should do that. So I've seen some give away pre-release. I've some still fulfill it to their pre-orders. But I don't know if there's any still specific instructions on that, kind of more so stores.
We do leave it up to the stores to manage how they want to distribute it. Really because sort of playing into what is best for your community and how to hand it out. We want to make sure that folks have it in time for pre-release. So maybe it's prizing, maybe it's a new player mode, maybe it's whatever. So I don't want to. We're not going to force an issue on that. If you're looking for some guidance, we can certainly talk about other ways to maybe distribute those through. But it was very intentional to say, however the store wants to manage the distribution of these.
That was never really communicated to a
that's
lot of us. To where it's like, hey, we've tossed this stuff in for free. Use it as we see fit, because how he runs his events is going to be different than how I run mine.
And I think that's one of the most awesome things about this game. That the price support you guys can put out there, it's solid, it's consistent, and it does give us flexibility to take care of our customers the way we want.
And it is collectible stuff too. Because I have seen people hunting down those tokens, been like, man, I really missed the red one that came out in, what was that, Twilight?
I didn't get the red one.
And people are still hunting it down. Like, I have people coming and knocking on my door from out of state going, do you guys still have any of the red initiative tokens left?
No.
Like, they really wanted them.
Yeah.
I'll say, I just want to make sure we respect for everybody's time, and we're 2 minutes past. So I know that you are going to have to answer a question or two after that, so we can definitely stick around. But I did want to give a round of applause for our panelists. Already, but you are more than free to go. Be sure to get your token unit packs on your way out. Thank everybody and enjoy.